What's up YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Oxygen Not Included Season 2. So I'm not gonna lie, this episode might be a bit hectic. I make some mistakes. Now looking at the very start, you can see that our ALGAE is, low. Now it's going up and down. That's because I have already told them to dig out a load that I found or that I could get to. But also the water was a problem, as we knew from the recent episode. So my solution to the water is that this very cold water up here, which isn't ideal, but it would do for now. We can get a couple of sieves on this polluted water anyway from the slushy guys up, and turn that into clean water with a couple of sieves, or at least one if we can get one working. There is also a lot of oxygen trapped in this room. You can see where it's being cleaned by those air cleaners. I just need to get it around. Remember that this is all cold, and that's going to be a problem for me because everything that I can use that's useful is going to be cold. Now the water will freeze at 0. Brine won't, but we can't drink brine. Well, I suppose you can, but it wouldn't be very pleasant. So we'll get 2 sieves in there and see how they go. But this is basically infrastructure. I'm actually reacting as opposed to being proactive here. I have played this game before, I promise, but I got distracted by trying to keep everybody safe. By safe, it meant that I was actually using the gas masks. And normally I just let them go balls deep. What I need to do is dig out the side, so the asteroid or the home base is basically the base that we build, and then everything outside of it should be dug out. All of the gases will settle and we can steal what we want from there. We know what we've got, and then I can get what else I need from other planets or asteroids as and when. Now I know that I'm going to be working on this. By working on this, I mean clearing out the water and cleaning it. I can open up that geyser actually and allow it to fall into the same pit. All I need to do is get rid of the brine that's in there because that's no use to us. And that can be done with a couple of filters, no problem. And then just dump it elsewhere or put it into a storage place. That looks a bit better. Getting there anyway. You can see we've got the piping mostly in, the filters are in, so we're only sending up polluted water to the sieves so they don't get broken. The only other thing that's in there is brine, and there's only a set amount. There won't be any more because the geyser that creates the brine is above and still capped. So the idea was to chuck it to the side there and just move it out of the way, but that doesn't work. I end up having to actually store it. But that's a little bit in the future, so we'll wait for it. And of course I disconnected all of these now. I don't actually think they are working anymore because there is no polluted oxygen in there. The only polluted oxygen is coming from the water at the bottom. So I can actually move those down, and all of them up in that left hand side will be ripped out when we actually clear that out. Normally I would do small sections at a time and just clear it as I go, but I actually think doing the mass like dig outs quickly with plenty of ladders, scaffolding, and then letting the gases settle is a better way of doing it, as long as the gases aren't deadly and the temperatures aren't deadly as well. So just building the pipe down now, or starting it, just to get the water to the place it needs to be, which is our water storage. You can do cheesy water storages. You've seen them where they use the gas pipes, and you can make one. I think it's one tile, and it just stores infinite water, gases, liquids, whatever. But I don't like to do that. I like to try and keep it kosher and have a water tank. Plus, it gives me a better idea of how much I've got or not got. Also, having an infinite water source. I'd have to find that much water first, and that's one of the things I'm struggling with. Now we are getting away from that now, though we've got cold water, but at least I can put in I can't remember what it's called, but there's a liquid heater. I can put that in the actual water storage and just tell it to keep it at a certain temperature. That way we can bring in water from anywhere that's cold and keep it at a set temperature, which should work well. It will use a lot of power though. On the side as well, you can see we are down to our last sort of, what's that, 6 kilos of, or 6 tons, sorry, of coal. That's quite low. ALGAE is still showing 0, but it doesn't look like I've realised yet because I'm too busy prattling about with this. Setting up an automatic heater just there because that's where the pipe goes down. And the idea is I can set a atmospheric or just a thermometer around that area. If it gets too cold, that kicks in to try and counteract it. Whether it'll work or not, I'm not sure. But if I need to get more complex, I will. Now, there is plenty of coal and algae, to be honest, in the map, even in the areas that I'm digging, but I've not been chasing it up until this point because I haven't really needed it. The way I want to do power is through the heat, which is a thermo... can't remember what they're called now, but the thermo generators. So all you do is provide them with heat, they turn that heat into power and cold. And then obviously using the bottom of the map, which we've already uncovered, should work nicely with that. There is a couple of volcanoes, which is a permanent heat source as well. But they're a bit dangerous to work on, so I'll cap them as soon as possible and then leave them alone for now. There is plenty of lava at the bottom of the map that we can steal from. However, I haven't got the level of research that we need to do that yet. But we'll come back to that sooner rather than later, actually. Of course, there is only a certain amount of resources on the asteroid. And we haven't got quite to the rocket area to leave it. We can get to the second one through the teleport in. But quite frankly, this one is proving to be more complex than I would have liked it to. It's not the best seed I've ever had. But it's not the worst either. The difficulty is not, well, it's certainly not the hardest it can be. Of course, you can tell that you wouldn't be chucking duplicates or forcing duplicates into the dirty water like that if it was. But it's also not the easiest, so we are struggling a little bit with them being quite ill a lot. I do have the massages set, and of course the hospital is set up as well. If that gets overwhelmed, I can build another one, but again, it's space that's the problem at the minute, really. Especially keeping it within my structure, if you want to call it that. It looks like more of a side-on of a skyscraper, but yeah. I could increase the size of the rooms still. There's still, but that would be reworking the whole base, and I'm not sure I want to commit to that as of yet. Any tips though, let me know. I'm no expert, of course. I do like the game and the remit of it. And it is called Oxygen Not Included, and I'm running out of oxygen a lot, so it makes sense. Again, algae is the problem here, because without algae, that is the only source of oxygen we have, using the generators that use that. They stop working, we run out. Now it will start telling me, and I will start realising that shortly. And there is plenty of oxygen outside of the base that's just there, that's not being used, I can bring in. And I do in fact do that. But again, most of it's cold because of the cold biomes that we've dug into at this top area. Right, so that's doing its thing. The one on the left does take some damage. I mean, obviously the water to the left may be slightly colder because it's close to the guys. I don't know. It just seems the one on the right works fine. The one on the left doesn't. So I do turn the one on the left off and just use the one on the right. It's more than enough. You can see this is where I'm actually going to put in the water storage. That is where I'm going to make the brine go. And that is the salt water in this game. And the idea of that is then that this pit should be full with polluted water only, which means I can rip out the filters and a few of the other complications. Remember, the filters use power as well, so it's always nice to make it as clean as possible. And for now, this is probably going to be the way I'm going to get water. Now, another option for oxygen is using the machine that basically splits the water, electrolyzer. By electrolyzing water, you break it into its atoms, so you get the hydrogen and the oxygen out of it. Now, the hydrogen gas we can store for a rocket or something later on. The oxygen, obviously, you can release into your base. The problem with that is you need a lot of water. And the fact that we are struggling to have enough water for the base means that I can't really go down that option either at the minute. Now, there is a lot of frozen liquids in them two chests that are there in the room, you can see. So we could look at trying to speed up that process of them defrosting. My only concern with it at the minute is that there is more than just ice in there. Now, ice is okay because that's clean water, and polluted ice is polluted water, which we're already cleaning. But any frozen brine or anything else that's frozen in there that's not will screw up the process. So I'll have to clean it up a little bit, I think. But for now, it's certainly a plan. I've got somebody trying to study that geyser, but it is quite cold. As you can see, they're not having a great time with it. But they're going, and it shows at about, what is that, 75, 80% complete? Not sure. Okay, so back to something else other than the cold area it's making me cold, is the rest of the base. Down at the bottom you can see that nothing's really changed, and I'll be honest, it's not going to until we get the power side sorted out. I could move the batteries and stuff down there, but it just seems like a wasted venture when we've got other fires to put out. Again, we're still showing that we've got no algae, even though it doesn't appear that I've realised that yet, unless I'm currently in the process of looking. But I know there's a decent amount around, and coal as well, and that is also running out. So I need to do twofold there and make sure we do both of them. All of this lava down here, and therefore a lot of heat, we will turn into power hopefully at some point. The only difficulty is, and we'll see when we get there, is I'm not the best at keeping the duplicates alive when I'm doing the complicated things like setting up the lava into steam, automations, and I usually lose one or two, but we'll see. You never know. I decided to dig this out because I had a plan, and the plan was to put the refinery there. But I do change my mind. Because there are plenty of other things I need to do, again, like oxygen. Now, in the research, I can't find for the life of me the actual thermo generator that I want. You can see I've clicked on power and I'm looking for it. I can't find it. I'm wondering whether the mods... I've not actually switched the mod on, which, yeah, could be possible. I do things like that all the time. You can see the steam generator is there, and that's the third set of science, which means we need to get that up and running. We've got the 𝐷𝐿 seeds to give us the radiation, but there's also a nice big batch of uranium that I've found as well, so we could do it the really dirty way should we need to. Just dug out there, and you can see we've found the frozen fossil. I think this is 5 in total that you have to do in order to complete the quest or plan. Here as well, you can see there is the now you can't see, but it is actually the frozen one, petrified one, and it is very, very hot, the one on the left there. And then above it there is the amber fossil. So we've found the ice, the amber, and the petrified. We've already done the normal one, so I think we're only looking for one more. But I wouldn't imagine it's too difficult because we're going to rip it all out anyway, is the plan. Trying to stay away from the zombie spores, of course. But there's a lot of digging to do, and these guys seem slower than I'm used to. I have played it in fast mode before, though, and that obviously, yeah, makes a big difference. Of course, it's in the name. But I'll start on the left-hand side, likely, because that's where most of the coal is. And as a byproduct, while digging, I'm going to be keeping the generators on. But I really do need to get to the next stage of research, because we're not going to survive, or I'm not going to survive, as I am, just on coal. It's showing us only 1,400 kilos left, which is less than 1.5 ton. And algae's still out, but you can see everybody's starting to struggle now, which I think is roughly where I start to notice. I have turned the reeds on just because we've got plenty of polluted water again. So to stop it overflowing or backing up, I'll get them to turn it into fabric. Or, yeah, fabric. And then them two machines there that allow us to teleport goods from one asteroid to the other, I'll likely need to get them on soon as well, because that's hopefully, if we have a good amount of water or something useful on the other asteroid, I might have to jump to that sooner than I wanted to. So, just above the original research room that I've already moved once, we're going to chuck in the next stage. This room will be for the, I think it's called Applied Science, the third science only. So you have the machine on the at the doorway, and then over to the far right hand side, the idea is I'll have the 𝐷𝐿 with the rad bolt generator and trigger via a machine thingy-mabobber. That's what it's called in the game, I'm sure. And then that will give us the third science, the applied science, which gets us into stuff like the steam generation as a worst case scenario, or the thermo one that I've been talking about since the start, I think. I do have sulfur. There's probably a lot better things to use it for than wallpaper, but meh. Normally, I think you use it for the actual grubs, to turn the Sweedles into grubs, but I'm not doing that this time. Not sure why, but I ain't got around to it yet. And again, I want to get some sort of structure on the oxygen problem, get that solved, and the power, before I start playing around with making fancy farms and automations and fancy bedrooms. That's pretty much the setup without the actual rad bolt generator around them, or it will go in between them, hopefully. I might need to move it around a little bit. They are good to go. They just need a pipe on them to stop that warning and turn them on. Even though they don't need the liquid, it needs to show it, so it's a bit weird. Above the machine, I've also put the light with the sensor, because of course all research happens faster if they have a light above them. It's just how the game does it, which is why I've got one above the first two stations and the third as well. You can see he's struggling for oxygen there, and I think round here is where I realised that, oops, because they're holding their breath in the research room, which is not supposed to be happening. And of course you can see there, that will get rid of them and they'll immediately work. Now I am going to disable them, because I don't want them to waste the resources, the fertilization as it's called, until I actually need them. And if they turn out to be not that good with radiation, I can always switch out and use uranium and the radiation torches, lamps? I think they're called lamps, yeah. Here we go. I think the penny's dropped, and I've realised that that's supposed to be blue, not whatever colour that is, grey. As you can see in the cold area, it was full of oxygen, but the base itself is struggling quite significantly. Okay, so a little bit further on, and basically we've jumped ahead a couple of cycles here, but all I did was chase down any algae or coal that was within reach, and you can see by within reach, it's just the odd ladder here. This area caused me a lot of problems because of how hot it is. It's about 350 degrees in that relic, so that is a problem. I'm assuming I'm supposed to send them out there with a Atmos suit, which I haven't got yet, but never mind. As long as they don't stay there too long, it's not a problem. If you noticed, I chucked in a couple of insulated doors just to stop that heat from getting anywhere else for now. This whole left-hand side I want to rip out, and that is going to be the first main project. The scalding warning there you're seeing is what alerted me to the fact that there was a problem with heat down there, because I had no idea. Again, I've not done the fossils before, so I didn't know there was like different elements to them. A cold one, a hot one. I'm not sure if the amber's probably got something else wrong with it. No idea. But we've got to do them to see what it does. Now what I'm going to try and do is make it so that this whole left-hand side is only accessible by that very bottom platform. Which is why I'm putting a random door there, though I need to put some blocks above it because they can stand on it apparently. And then in that section down there, look, where they walk in, I'll put some gas masks, and then I can try and rip out the whole left-hand side with them using gas masks. Of course, the gas masks will need oxygen, so I'm going to take this oxygen from here in a tank. I'm not going to rip it out the base because there's already not enough in the base. We have a very small amount of algae, which has already run out apparently, and that's gone straight into the base. You can see the pumps, the oxygen generators are working there. And there you go. Nice, simple operation setup. And again, I've only got gas masks. I don't have Atmos suits, which is why I can't use them or build them, so gas masks will have to do. For oxygen, it's fine. It'll give them oxygen. It'll keep them breathing for quite a while. However, all of the temperature changes and gases for the eyes and such, it will do nothing for them. They'll still suffer there. You can see now I'm just going to whiz through and put a few scaffoldings down. Correction, a lot of scaffoldings down. And now I'm just going to ask it to dig out everything in between the scaffoldings. 4 gap scaffolding will be enough that they'll be able to reach all of that. Around that amber relic there is a zombie spore. I do notice that before I get to it, I believe. And then down here the same, just dig out. Now I'm not going on that left hand side because it's a bit too close to where it's hot. and it is deadly for them. And then I'll try and set it all on a, what, 7. Now, I would love to put it higher or set it for an emergency, do a time lapse and get all 20, no I haven't got 20 yet, 18 duplicates on it. But the way I've set it up to use gas masks, the maximum of 5 is my limit. So that's all I can do. And of course, I've got 5 gas masks, and only while they have oxygen available to them will they work. They are cheap to make. It's just a little bit of copper ore, so that's good. Atmo suits are obviously a lot more expensive, but they're a lot better. And I will look at doing that shortly. The idea is, if you go outside of the base, you should have an Atmo suit on. That's the way I build these. It's not my setup. It's one I've watched off a previous YouTuber. But you have your base that is sealed and content from heat and cold, as well as its own source of oxygen. And then everything outside of that, even your generation and all your digging and everything's done in an Atmo suit. Okay, so quite a few cycles later, you can see we've now got 20 duplicates and a nice cup of tea for me while I waited for it. This whole side, well, I say most of this side is ripped out. Now, the water at the bottom was a blessing and a curse. It started to cool down that, so I thought I'd be able to get there, but then apparently it decided that it wanted to go hot again and turn it all into steam. So I've capped that off best I can. Now, what you can see on this side is that the oxygen is at the top or near it. The hydrogen's at the very top, followed by oxygen, polluted oxygen, natural gas, chlorine, and carbon dioxide. That is how it will settle out, and once it does, I am then going to be able to go in there and steal that. The gas now is being pulled from that cold area, as I've said, using this sensor. If the base is at 1 kilo of pressure in terms of the oxygen gas, it will stop, just to stop it from wasting it. And if it's below that, it will pump oxygen into the base. Now, this is making the base colder than I want it, but it's keeping them alive. I'd rather them be cold and alive than dead as dicks. So that's the aim, that's the plan, that's what I've done so far. It is a bit of a mess. If anybody's got any tips of how to speed up getting out of this mess, please do let me know. For now, you'll have to watch me suffer. It is all my own doing, and I'm not sure why I got distracted in terms of doing things I wouldn't normally do. Most of this side is done. I could go a bit further down, but there are zombie spores there, and to be honest, it's not that big of a deal. There's no resources there that I need anyway. These gases, I'm hoping I'll be able to filter out and store. I'm not expecting that to turn into a vacuum per se, but it's potentially doable. You can see there is still this massive chunk here, so from here up to where the other cold realm is, I'd like to get up to there and get all of that ripped out and let it settle. It'll also help with the temperatures, because I'm getting good oxygen from this chamber to the right there at the minute, but it is very cold. That Swedel area we already know is a very warm area, so it should help with that. But there is a lot of chlorine and hydrogen trapped there too. The quicker I get it all ripped out and allow it to settle, make nice pretty lines, the easier it will be to get to. On the left-hand side where I ripped it all out, there was a lot of water. I made a bit of a water trap, so I'm going to get a pump in there now. You can see a pump. Build that in there to rip out that water. That's all the water from the left-hand side. Not much, but there is still more to come. Just need to find its way down there, but it was the easiest way of doing it. But we are at time anyway on this episode, so thank you very much for watching. If you like the video, please click like. Any comments are welcome as always. Subscribe for more. Join us on Discord. Take care. Goodbye.